The Wes Penre Papers. A Journey Through the Multiverse. The First Level of Learning. http://wespenre.com. Soulution Section. Soulution Paper Number 5, The Great Initiation. By Wes Penre, Wednesday, August 31, 2011. 1. Male versus female power. As long as we can remember, there has been a battle between male and female power. In nature, we often see the female being in charge, like is the case with bees, ants, even lions, and many other animals. There was a discussion just recently on my Facebook wall about the divine female. I can understand this concern and the need to discuss these things, because we currently live in a man's world. The top positions in society, with exceptions, are held by men, and society is based on men's needs more than women's. Many jobs, not so long ago, paid women less than men for doing the exact same job. We had something called women's liberation some decades ago, where it looked like women were trying to regain their rights and their power in a man's-dominated society, but of course, this was just another program run by the PTB number to break up the family unit, which they saw as a threat to the current order. Also, it had nothing to do with becoming equal. Instead, the movement made men out of women and didn't create a more powerful female, but a male/female, who suppressed the divine female even more by making them into men. In addition, they started blaming men for being men and attacked them instead of making peace with them. Agent provocateurs at work again. This fight is nothing new, it's been going on for thousands of years. But who was creating the separation between woman and man? That's a no-brainer. It was done by the Anunnaki, who set up this paradigm. This separation between the sexes has served them extremely well over the millennia, and still does. The Anunnaki has a great influence over our societies up to this date and are the main manipulators behind the scenes, those who run the human hybrids PTB number. It is interesting to observe that even with the manipulators behind the scenes, there is most probably a struggle with male/female dominion. The Anunnaki are evidently male-dominated, but the reptilians, whom are working together with the Anunnaki, are female-dominated, Orion queens. Still, the A.A.M.I Anunnaki are the ones in charge, that's why we see this male-dominated society. Around 5,000 years ago, 3000 BC, the male vibration came into power here on Earth. Before that, females were the dominating sex amongst humans here on Earth. Human males were manipulated by the gods to totally disassociate themselves from everything that then was in power, the matriarchal movement of females. This was a brilliant move by the Anunnaki, from their perspective, because they knew, of course, that the female stands for intuition and feelings. Men have also been carriers of feelings and intuition, but in this recent separation, they didn't bring their feeling with them, except in a much lesser degree, they lost it in the process. The schism was huge and a great conflict between males and females was played out. This was a big setup by the creator gods to feed them, keep them alive and functioning in this reality, nourishing themselves off emotional turmoil. We need to really understand that all the turmoil and chaos, conflicts, and wars, when it happens on a greater scale, is orchestrated by the PTB and ultimately the EPTB number for them to feed off. Every time we are stupid enough to fall for their little tricks, and we do it all the time, over and over again without learning, they are feeding off our energy, which is boosting them and draining us. I'm all for giving, but that's a little too much of a gift, don't you think? The best way to create these negative energies is to have the players fight against each other by feeding both sides of the conflict with lies about the other. It's been done thousands of times over the years, and it seems to almost always work. We have to boost our intelligence to a point when we see through their tactics, it's actually not that hard. So, after they had created a conflict between man and woman, the males won, and the societal structure started changing with more men in higher position. This didn't happen through a coup, but more subtly and slowly. When most of the Anunnaki left, around 2500 BC, Marduk and his cohorts stayed on Earth and continued to support the male power agenda. He did not want feelings and intuition come in his way, as it threatened his own position. The more down-to-earth, male energy there was, the more power to him. Satan knows how to lead by the formula, divide and conquer. Ultimately, the struggle between female and male power is obsolete and always was. The Prime Creator is genderless, and gender was created for biological beings to be able to reproduce and to shoot off their sexual energies out in the cosmos. If we see the creation of galaxies and stars being huge orgasmic explosions from which life eventually sprung, female and male orgasm is creation on a much grander scale than most humans realize. Orgasm is not only for our own pleasure, but has cosmic ramifications as well, something to think about and expand our consciousness around. With the view in mind that everything was genderless from the beginning and all is one, we need to start working on breaking the spell of separation that has been put on us to control us. Instead of fighting and arguing about which gender is the most powerful, we need to concentrate on bringing up both sides within ourselves. Females need to develop the male energies inside of them, and men need to bring out the female side. This doesn't mean that men should start acting like women and vice versa, this has to do with wisdom and balance. A male can still stay masculine while opening their heart chakras and let feelings and intuition guide them more in life. This, in fact, can be pretty manly. Women can still be women and keep their female energy but still bring out the male part inside of them. Once we're able to do this comfortably, there will be no more struggle on this issue, and both men and women can equally use both masculine and feminine energies to enhance their spiritual and biological development. The struggle we have as a species with this issue is nothing more than the struggle we have with understanding our own inner conflict of our own masculine and feminine attributes. So, as always, the conflict needs to be resolved not by looking outside of ourselves, but to the inside. Men have often been taught that they should not show feelings, that it's girly or feminine, when in fact it's the most masculine thing we can do, and besides that, it's the only way for us to evolve from here on. When we don't feel, we don't value life. Unfortunately, the female gave up her intuition when she signed up to the patriarchal movement, and so no one won. I'm going to speak in generalities here for a moment, but men these days are very stuck in the second chakra and think with their genitals, while women are stuck in their throat chakra, from being quiet about their feelings and intuition. This has been so for thousands of years and is another important change we need to make. I am happy to see that there are more women now in the spiritual and conspiratorial fields these days. When I started posting articles on the internet 13 years ago, these fields were dominated by males. There were females too, but sort of in the background. The heavy-weighing researchers, as they were perceived, were more often than not, men. Then females started coming forth in the spiritual field, and that was extremely refreshing, because I could see that these women, when they were genuine, had once again opened up their feeling centers and their throat chakras, they were becoming whole. There is still difficult to find women in the conspiratorial field, but I think it's coming. This field brings out male energies. I notice when I talk to people about these subjects that women in general are not so interested in the conspiratorial subjects and tend to dissociate from them, while they are embracing the spiritual ones. With men it's the opposite, but on the other hand, I can see that it's more evened out more now than it was just 2 to 3 years ago, but we still have ways to go. What I think is important to remember, though, is that both the female and the male are equally important to have balance. Both sexes are needed to bring life to the planet. Even if a woman is getting impregnated artificially, it's still male sperm. Ultimately, I am not talking about the relationship between women and men, but to bring out both the feminine and masculine in ourselves, whether we are males or females. But before we can successfully do that, we need to acknowledge and embrace these energies in each other as well. When we have done that, there should be no problem to bring it out from inside. However, I don't think we need to complete one before the other. My own experience is, and I believe I have accomplished this, that you start on one end and the other begins to develop as well, until you feel the balance inside yourself between male and female. For a man to bring up the female energies is something fantastic. Without it, I wouldn't be able to write a word in this paper, most of it is written with female energies, because I am using intuition and emotions to write it, and I am connecting with my higher self, Oversoul, which is mostly done by the female side. Being able to naturally feel compassion, receptivity for other people's needs and feelings, increased creativity and nourishment is wonderful. When the female part of yourself is opening up, you feel more whole and happier in general, because there was a part of you which was suppressed that is now let free. The same thing goes for women who embrace their male part. If we look at gay men, they are often opposites in their romantic relationships with other men. We have one person who is very feminine, sometimes much more so than women are, and is stuck in the female energies and can't connect well with his own male energies. The other gay partner is often different. He is more masculine, and sometimes it's even hard to tell that he is gay. He is stuck in male energy, and the two are each other's extremes and try to balance each other out. The same goes for gay women. We have a masculine woman, more dominant, and a very feminine counterpart. Women often like gay men, the ones who have opened up their feminine side, and have them as friends, because they feel they can talk to them about female things. They even ask them for advice regarding which man they should date and how they should do it. This tells us something about us men who are not gay. We need to open up our feeling centers and get balanced. Then, unfortunately, we have the Bible story which also promotes men before women, the male for the female. First of all, God is male, and He created woman out of Adam's rib, which means man came first and woman was his delivery. It's pretty much the opposite from what we see happen with our own eyes, isn't it? We don't see males giving birth to babies, it's the other way around. But the people described in Genesis were very patriarchal, and so was the Sumerian society, from where the forerunner to the Bible was written. And now we know that God was in reality an Anunnaki extraterrestrial, the Enlil/Namur. This was a very male-oriented God, obviously, and so was his society. This affected all humans who listened to him, as above, so below. The Bible, and other so-called holy scriptures have certainly helped bringing the man-dominated society on. This makes it hard for men to embrace their female side. Men rarely have an example from men in their childhood. They are raised with the old idea how a man should be, and although a male baby always has both sexes in balance, we start emphasizing the male part in a male baby right away and do not acknowledge the female side and vice versa. This creates an unbalanced child. It doesn't mean we should dress a male baby in female clothes, of course, I am talking about letting him always show his feelings without thinking that it's girly. You see, you don't even have to tell him it's girly, because babies and little kids are quite psychic and will pick up on your emotions. So if you think he is girly when he talks about how he feels, he will pick up on that and shut down his feeling centers, just like the majority of men have done today. And those who haven't often keep their feelings to themselves. Very few are open and talk freely about them, because they know that people, read men, will be afraid and uncomfortable. They fear that if this person continues, they too have to meet his conversation by open up their heart chakra. This is scary for many men, but it's a fresh breeze when someone is brave enough to do this. We are marrying a partner of the opposite sex. Even if you're gay, you often relate to someone who has the opposite sexual energies, so we feel that we can become more whole, or at least that was the original intention a long time ago, but these days we often marry to fill a more egotistical need that we hope the partner can help filling. Now it's time to marry our twin flame inside as well. When we do, we can find a life partner that is whole as well, and we don't choose them because we need them to achieve a hole in ourselves that they never can fill. We choose a partner we can grow equality together with, and this is a huge difference. In the extension, most people will find that the constitution of marriage becomes obsolete, and the rules and regulations therein are not fitting the new way of being. This can be hard to wrap our heads around, because marriage is such an imprinted part of our programming, and it bonds people. It has worked well over the millennia, but it's going to feel natural in the future to change this constitution. There will be much better ways to bond. Some people will probably get upset over this statement, but I would suggest that after you've read it and feel upset over it, just let it go for now and follow your path, as always, and see what the future brings. Nothing will be enforced on you. If it's right, it'll come naturally. Most people in this world are trying to adjust themselves so that they can be loved by others and prove that they are worthy to be loved. This is a huge misconception, and this is not why we're here. We are here to learn how to love ourselves. Once we have accomplished this, we can love others, unconditionally, and others, who have done the same thing, can love you back unconditionally, too. Still, you will find that by loving all and everything around you, you will help raising the frequency of everybody else, except those who aim in the other direction. Another misconception is that you always have to do what other people expect from you. If they ask you to build a house for them when you really have no obvious way of doing so with everything else going on in your life, it's okay to say no. The greatest help you can be to mankind is to develop your internet, your inner self, inner network. To become that candle in the dark, or the lighthouse in the night, which inspires other lighthouses to lighten up. This is service to others in its finest form. The task I am presenting here above is a very difficult one. It may sound easy, but in a world in darkness, it's hard to find this spark inside yourself which will trigger your mission to self-exploration. To master self-love, and I am not speaking of egotistic love here, which is putting yourself above others, and keep the frequency is one of the most difficult things you can do, and still it needs to be done. You will find that it's not possible to always be able to hold the frequency at all times, but when your frequency field decreases, you may want to get it back up again as soon as possible, and this is the test. Can you do it? Can you take what you learn and not just keep it inside of you as information, but also live it on a daily basis when you meet with other people? This is a big part of your initiation, if not the biggest, here on Earth. And again, remember that Source, with whom we are all connected, is genderless. Duality only exists in 4 space/time, but is necessary for this reality to work. Creating equilibrium between the sexes is therefore a goal. 1.1 More on Game Masters, Master Numbers, and Divine Female Energy. Take the last 2 digits of your birth year, then add that to the age you are going to be, or became, this year, in 2011, and it comes up to 111. So, for example, if you were born in 1981, you add 81 plus 30, your age, equals 111. To cross-check, here's another example made up by me from the top of my head. If you're born in 1968, it would add up like this, 68 plus 43 equals 111. It doesn't matter when you were born or how old you will be in 2011, it will always add up to 111. And it only works for 2011. It works for every living creature on this planet. If you were born before the shift of the millennium, or you'll lose a 1. This is pretty interesting in itself, and it shows a little bit how master numbers work. Every number has a signature, and the PTB love the number 11. The number 11 is also supposed to be Lucifer's number, the fallen angel. 1 is also the beginning of something, but we can't have a beginning without a 0, 0. There must always be something to begin from, something that was there before the beginning. 0 is the womb and 1 is the phallus. 3 ones equals 3, which is a Christian number, but also the number of balance, creates equilibrium. By playing around with numbers, you start getting associations with words which will tell you a story. E.g., 3 equals Trinity, 1 equals male energy, 0 equals female energy, 8 equals infinity, and so on. Mixing the numbers one way will tell one story, and if you mix them another way, they will tell you something else. The PTB love to play with numbers and they put them out there in plain sight, knowing that very few people will be able to interpret what they mean, and if some people do, they can just laugh it off as coincidence. However, if a mathematician starts looking into these things, he may be puzzled and think, what are the odds? Not only if he were to look into the symbolism of the PTB, but also into the universal codes. Those who can decode them will find some very interesting things to ponder. On a much higher level of reality, there are game masters, who help orchestrate realities based out of numbers and number combinations. The universe is a highly mathematical phenomenon and quite precise. In other words, there are larger hands at play. Numbers are only symbols for concepts, something to keep in mind. 0 is also the number of creation, a nothingness becoming a somethingness, or a beginning, 0 being the divine. Now we're getting into the divine female again, where 0 also represents the female. So in that capacity, the female energy is the divine energy, because to create universes, there first has to be a womb where creating can be born and developed, and then there's the male, impregnating the female. This is the absolute basis of the term divine female, and why some say God is female. Still, a nothingness, which becomes intelligent energy, does not have a gender, but once intelligent energy decides to create, it must become female in nature first. Then, as the male energy enters the equation, we immediately have duality, and to achieve equilibrium, we need balance between the two. If one take prejudice over the other, nature is becoming imbalanced, and it can have all different ramifications, as we have noticed. These are abstract concepts, but numbers are being used consistently by creator gods to create worlds and universes. They are both based on numbers. Interestingly enough, this whole subsection happened to be numbered 1.1. I didn't do that on purpose, it just tuned out to automatically fit in that way into the flow of the paper. Then again, there are no coincidences whatsoever. 2. A short metaphysical aspect on astrology. Astrology is a huge subject that takes years and years for the most brilliant of us to really grasp, and when I say grasp I mean in the sense humans know it, which is quite limited. We can think of the planets in the solar system as archetypes. We know that the ancient people, almost no matter where they lived on the planet, had similar stories to tell their children. We also know that we have had ET presence on Earth since the beginning of time, but this is in another sense. The ancient people were also perceptive enough to feel the influence of cosmic forces. The ETs only taught them how it works, the ancient humans tuned into it. This is based on the idea that the universe watches all beings, and the multiverse remembers and records everything that is happening. This is based on the holographic principle. The multiverse is telling you the story of itself, of Earth, and yourself. It means that these stories come back to be told again and again on a cyclic basis as the universe moves in cycles, of which what we call the zodiac is a part. And think about it, Earth is a planet, too. So Earth has her stories and her archetype. When you look at astrology and how the various planets affect you, be aware that when Earth is going through her initiation and acceleration of energy, what we are broadcasting out is extraordinarily powerful. So, not only are Earth and the other planets touching you, telling their stories, it's also we, telling our stories to the planets and the multiverse, equally. The power of what we are doing now is really going to set things into motion. 3. Geometric downloads. I don't know if you have ever gazed at the sun for maybe 5 seconds, and then looked the other way and closed your eyes? First you'll see an imprint of the sun for your inner vision, but if you pay attention, there are other things, patterns that may show up in the third eye as well. I have seen black holes, which I have followed with my inner thought and come out through a white hole on the other end. There I may see other shapes and patterns form. Then I may return through the hole and come back where I started. Also, which is why I'm telling you this, you may see geometric figures inside your head, slowly or rapidly floating around. They can be any shape, triangles, rectangles, circles, pentagons, octagons, you name it. It's quite interesting. I had noticed this for quite some time and used to do this experiment when I am outdoors in the summertime when the sun is more intense. First I didn't know what these figures were, and if my eyes were just playing tricks with me. But then I realized that all these figures I saw were geometric in nature and had that structure to it. They were quite distinct and couldn't be misinterpreted for something else than that. A while ago, when I picked up Barbara Marciniak's book, Bringers of the Dawn, I found the answers right there. The Pleiadians are explaining to us in that book exactly what I experienced. The sun, as we have discussed a few times in the papers, is downloading information into our biological beings, our biokind, most intensely through gamma rays. This information is encoded and will be decoded in our DNA, so if I look at these figures I have seen with my third eye, I can't interpret or decode them with my logical mind. What the sun is transmitting is the language of light, and humans have 144,000 seals of energy that will be infused within our beings, eventually. At this point, the body can only hold 12 seals, the rest will come much, much later and not in this lifetime, with this body. First of all, this mutation, which includes the reactivation of the 12-strand DNA, can be achieved by any human being on this planet so long as they are willing to walk the walk and don't give up halfway, or before they've even started. When we evolve, one of the first things we become aware of is who we are. We realize without any doubt that we are cosmic beings and a part of something much bigger, something so vast that it contains everything there is, from the smallest nanoparticle to the largest galaxy and universe. We realize that we are pure consciousness in a body and that we are immortal as a being and a part of God, and therefore, we, all together, and alone, are God. Next, or somewhere down the line, we will understand that this universe, and other universes as well, are seeded by cosmic beings, working in close connection with the Prime Creator, and many of these cosmic beings are pure intelligent energy that can take any shape and form. However, some of these cosmic founders are also physical in nature, but interdimensional at the same time. This energy, which goes under many names, the founders and the tribes of light are the two names I've used most in these papers. It's when we call upon this energy that we will be implanted with the geometric forms. How do you do that? Well, if you read this and are even remotely on the same path, this process has already started. Somewhere in the recent past you must have made a decision that you want to evolve and learn more about yourself and how the universe works. When you did, you called upon them, and they answered. Below I will mention the different geometric figures which the Pleiadians tell us are going to be implanted in us as we evolve, and explain a little bit about some of them. They are not in any particular order. One geometric shape that will be implanted in us is the pyramid. The pyramid is an extremely powerful symbol/geometric figure, and throughout the universe it represents unity of consciousness. It is very difficult to create in its many facets, and is a structure of perfection. When built on a planet as huge monuments, it collects energy from the planet and sends it outward, out into cosmos. The scholars, who have been puzzled about why the Great Pyramids on Earth are pointing directly towards a particular star, or star system, would have the answer right here. Earth energy is collected and sent out in cosmos towards the star system from which the beings who created them belonged. Then we have the spiral, which will be implanted as well. It's a loved and frequently used symbol here on Earth as a representation of communicating many different ideas. Spiral is a cosmic symbol of highest importance. Look at the spiral galaxies. Planetary bodies, both stars and planet, rotate around themselves while orbiting something more powerful. The parallel lines. The cube. The Merkaba vehicle, the five-sided figure, which represents the figure of the human being in its purest, unlimited state, a totally free human being. This implant comes when we truly commit ourselves to what we previously thought was impossible, e.g. that humans can be able to fly. The circle. This is the figure many humans will have implanted as the first one, because it represents God, unity, and completeness. A 00 is a circle, mind you. These are the geometric figures mentioned in Barbara Marciniak's book, but there are more. While many will have the circle implanted first, others will choose the pyramid. This planet is loaded with pyramids, they are everywhere. We think we have discovered them all, or most of them, when in fact there are a lot of them hidden deep in the jungles, overgrown by vegetation over time, and many more under the ocean, under a ceiling of thousands of feet of water, remnants of lost civilizations long before ours. Those who are ready and have the Merkaba implanted are already well aware of that the bio-mind doesn't have any limitations. They know it's possible to travel as pure consciousness, or as unlimited consciousness with their body, leaving the planet. There is no set order for the implants to occur in a being, it depends on the being and what they are ready for and have their attention on. They come when they best fit our personal developments. And as I mentioned above, these 6 geometric shapes are not the only ones. Once we start getting implanted, there will be an unending process of new forms coming into our being. On a daily basis, we choose what is important for us and form a concept. Whatever the current concept is, it determines which shape or shapes we are going to download. It will be the one, that suits us best at the moment and helps us take the next step forward. If you want to know which forms you have been implanted with, think about which forms you dream about, if any, or when you think about shapes and forms, which one, comes up first? Which one is biggest? The cells in the body contain the total history of this universe. However, the trick is to be able to go within yourself and then go outside of yourself and see that they are one and the same. The spiral is a basic form, not only in this physical universe, galaxies, but also interdimensionally. You can explore the spiral and it takes you to virtually endless dimensions. Even the DNA has the shape of the spiral. Spirals are all around you, visible or invisible, and the language of light rides upon the light-encoded filaments that also descend in spiral form. The Pleiadians say, these language of light geometrical shapes and forms are collections of experiences of individuals who have incarnated on this planet, defied the human laws, awakened themselves to high abilities and then manifested themselves as language and geometric components. Once these energies existed as men and women on this planet. They have evolved themselves into geometric symbols, and they exist in their sphere of activity just like you exist in your body. These entities exist in a language system or a geometric system. 3.1 Crop circles and geometrical figures. Crop circles don't need any deeper explanation. We all know what they are and how they mysteriously show up on the fields, prominently so in Great Britain, where I think it all started. First, we need to remember that Great Britain was once the northeastern peninsula of Atlantis on its height of power. And that part of it has a lot of hidden history, ley lines, and energy grids. Many of the crop circles are imitations of real, alien crop circles, and the man-made ones are done by the military complex, who have studied the real thing and learned how to copy them. Still, they can't do it as sophisticatedly as those not from here. More importantly, they don't carry the divine message. There are universes of geometrical systems, and at this point in time, when we are going through the nanosecond, many of these universes are visiting us. If you think that we can't be that important, think again. What we are going through, the initiation is an enormous thing for beings of many dimensions, in this universe and beyond. The genuine crop circles are often created in geometrical shapes. Some of the shapes, like the circles, Merkaba, heptagon, and pentagon etc., we recognize immediately, while other shapes are unfamiliar to us at this time, and we have a tendency to not even notice them in the crop circle formations. These formations are a frequency more than anything else, not a process or an action by some huge spacecraft or flying saucer from our third-dimensional universe. They are imprinted in the fields by the tribes of light or those who work with them, to establish a particular frequency. In 1992, the Pleiadians said that these crop circles are going to increase in numbers over the years, and indeed they have. Eventually, when we have had more of these geometric shapes implanted in us, we will start building houses corresponding with these shapes. On other planets, where the beings are more evolved than us, their abodes would look strange to us because of their geometric forms, but they know that certain shapes, not only squares and rectangles, hold different frequencies. Even in astrology, it is known that certain angles have power points and that certain things happen with certain angles. Same thing with shapes. If we look at the Great Pyramid, it's all about angles and shapes, nothing is built randomly, it's a perfect construction, and the builders knew geometry down to the core. My own dominant geometric implant, by the way, is the pyramid, I have noticed. Energy collects in angles and shapes and forms. Energy itself is formed and transmitted in this way, so now you may begin to understand a little bit why it's so important to have these geometrical shapes implanted into us. It really connects us to the cosmos, and different dimensions of reality, even other, parallel universes. If you walk inside the Great Pyramid, for example, you will notice, at least if you are an evolving person, that some angles and corners of the pyramids are very pleasant to stay in, while others have the opposite effect on us. We feel uncomfortable to be in them. That's why, in your bedroom, it's better to have the bed in the middle of the room than pushed into a corner. The energy can flow freely in the middle of the room, while in a corner you get stuck in an energy lock. Now the time has come when the quarantine will be lifted, the frequency fence be broken and scattered, and the energy portals will once again open so light can come in. As a matter of fact, that process is now happening, and we receive an enormous increase of geometrically encoded light into our body system, and our DNA is developing rapidly. Just think back in time 2 to 3 years and try to remember what you were doing, how you were thinking, and how spiritually evolved you were at that time. Personally, I can see how I have grown thousandfold just in these last 2 years. It's almost like we are talking about another person. I notice it the most when people are asking me questions or want me to elaborate on something I was deeply into 2 to 3 years ago, and I think, no, I am not even thinking in these terms anymore. I have left that behind since long, like if it was in another lifetime, and it's nothing I can, or have any desire to discuss anymore. It's not that what I did in the past is invalid, and I'm sure people will still appreciate it if they read it for the first time, but I have gone past it. I think many other people in these times feel the same about their own lives. Going back to the crop circles, even if a small percentage of them are made by spaceships, the majority of them are not made that way. Because consciousness has many shapes and forms, they often come as a wave. The Pleiadians were talking back in 1992 about a wave of light that eventually will hit the Earth and sweep it. This is very interesting, because the scientists at LPGC have now found out from ET races they have met with, that a wave from a supernova will hit us around November-December 2012. They are quite concerned about this and are not sure how humankind will react to this wave, and what will happen to Earth. Will this be the end of the world? I will discuss the wave of the supernova in the following paper, and its possible negative and positive implications. Geometrical shapes are like hieroglyphs. If we read the hieroglyphs and the pictographs on a stone wall in Egypt, carved in thousands of years ago, they would mean one thing, but if they would be read by the ancient priest of Egypt, they would mean something different. Then, in the extension, if they were read by the old creator gods, they again would mean something entirely different. This shows that intelligence is not in the words themselves, but words and combination of words hold certain intelligent frequencies that can be read differently by different people, depending on which level of initiation they are at. Same thing goes with the words and the combination of words in this paper. So, why are the crop circles here? They are put here by otherworldly and interdimensional beings to help us hold the frequency and manage it for us to have the courage to live the light. I believe they started in Great Britain, spread throughout Europe, appeared in South America, and even here in the United States. They were made, one by one, to help activating Earth's grid work. By moving them from continent to continent, they move the frequency band around the planet. At this point, there is no way we can figure them out, logically, because that is not their purpose. These shapes work on a much more subtle and deeper level of the human psyche. This is a frequency we humans can use to evolve. Therefore, it's important not to try to interpret the crop circles intellectually, but to feel them. Again, we are in for a paradigm shift where the intellect has to make room for our feeling centers, our heart chakra. It's energy at play, and it helps us understand that we don't always need to use our intellect to grab the concept of something. We can actually feel ourselves through something and become much wiser, much faster. Those who won't let go off their intellect to make room for their heart chakra will not evolve at this time and stay here for another cycle. This is only natural, and those who choose that path will eventually evolve as well, but perhaps not until the end of the next cycle. 4. What is your personal reality? Multiple Earths. The following is another very important concept to understand and can be quite hard to wrap the head around for many readers. Yet, it is how reality works from a metaphysical level down to the physical. The Earth as a whole planet is our living mother who watch us being born, growing up, getting old and die. She contains the combined mass consciousness of the human race and everything that lives on this planet. Most people think of it as one planet with about 7 billion people living on it, and that's it. However, we forget that each one of us lives on their own personal Earth, which is different from everybody else's Earth. We can call it our local Earth, or local universe, if we like. If you pick up the newspaper in the morning and read about what is happening in Israel, Iraq, Japan, Libya, and about terrorist attacks, hurricanes, earthquakes, etc., it is happening somewhere else. It's not happening in your personal, local Earth. It's going on, literally on another planet, or another version of the same planet, rather. You are creating your own reality based on your current belief systems, and this reality becomes your local Earth. On your version of Earth, there perhaps is no war, no starvation, terrorist attacks, or earthquakes, because these are not something that fit into your belief systems in the sense that they should be included in your reality. Are you expecting a hurricane to hit in your neighborhood? If so, you'd better recreate your local universe, unless you really want a hurricane to hit. Take a good look at your life. Where are you located? What kind of neighbors do you have? Do you live in a house, apartment, in an RV, in a war zone, in a part of the city where street gangs are ruling? What kind of job do you have? How is your environment? Nature? Big city? Is your life stressful? Do you feel safe or insecure? Are you constantly afraid, anxious, or do you feel at peace, knowing everything will turn out just fine? You can tell by looking at a person's life to see what his/her belief systems are. You can tell what kind of Earth that person has created for themselves. The person whom you meet with at work does not live on the same Earth as you do. Everybody is living on their own version of our planet. You are simply visiting each other's version when you work together and chat. And you share each other's reality. You see, the environment you live in, if it's a city, countryside, or whatnot, is a combined manifestation of everybody who lives in it, a local mass consciousness. Still, each person who shares it sees it slightly differently. Much of the news we get from the newspapers and by watching TV is biased to fit a certain agenda. This creates a certain reality. The PTB are very aware of how this works. They let the anchor on the news channel deliver a certain message which creates a mass agreement that changes the way people look upon the Earth and what is happening on her. The global elite creates a version of Earth which fits into the reality they want people to live in: artificial intelligence, war and terror, control and power, rich and poor, you name it. People who listen to this often buy into it and it becomes a part of their reality. They may still live a decent life, but as soon as they add the information they get from the news anchor into their own reality, the PTB know that they have them. Then, when it's time to implement something, those who embraced their previous brainwash into their local universe will now experience exactly what they feared was going to happen. Mind you, it was fear that made the person include the PTB agenda in their own reality, their own version of Earth, in the first place. Can you see how this works? I can't stress enough how important it is to clear your thoughts and be very precise over what it is you want. Don't use sloppy thinking or sloppy talking, because what you think and what you say create your reality. Again, look around you and ask yourself, am I safe? Do I have joy and happiness in my life? What's included in my version of Earth, is that what I want? If not, make sure you know what you want and decide that this is what your planet will look like. Then create it in the physical, if applicable, by perhaps moving, changing jobs, or whatever it is you need to do. Then you must realize that what is happening elsewhere is not happening in your own universe, or Earth, but in others, who have for any given reason decided to live there and make it their environment to have that experience even if they were born into it. It was a soul agreement. People in these times are very anxious about where the best place to live would be. Of course, it's a good idea not to live close to the ocean, a big river, or an earthquake area, but in general, the most important thing is not where you live, it's how you perceive your reality. Wherever you go, you take your inner stability and safety with you. If you upon that use a common level of discernment, you will be just fine. If your inner world is in turmoil, your environment is going to adjust to that, and turmoil will show up at your door wherever you choose to live. This is one of the big reasons why we have to be clear and stable inside. Of course, you can always go visit a war zone or a place where people are starving to help them out if you want, but be aware so that you don't bring on those energies into your own universe. Keep in mind you're only visiting. It's easy to create thoughts that are counter-survival for ourselves when we see people suffer. Not anything of what I just wrote exclude that we should help each other. We all live in our own universe, and if we see someone in need, it's natural to show compassion and feel love and a willingness to help. But if you are visiting places which are usually not in your reality, be careful what you're thinking while you're there, so that part of the suffering is not implemented into your own reality, one way or the other. Even if it's your grandparent who needs help, be aware that you are visiting that person's reality. Do whatever you can to help, but when you leave, you are returning to your own planet. This may sound strange to those who have never encountered this kind of thinking before, and it can take a while before it sinks in, but it's important indeed to realize this for the future to come. The PTB, powers that be, and the physical and metaphysical forces behind them, want to implement the ultimate control over mankind via machine technology, artificial intelligence, ET landings, fake and real, more wars, more terrorist attacks, weather changes, HARP, etc. After have totally crashed the economy, and most people are in dire straits, not knowing what to do, they will in one way or the other, possibly by introducing a benevolent alien race on the stage who will help us with technology, turn this around the way they want our future to be. And they have slowly but surely prepared us in the way I described above. They have for a very long time introduced us to their version of a future, common Earth, and now it's just a matter of implementing the last parts of the agenda. They want to build smart cities where each individual is guaranteed a job and survival, and many people will choose this version of Earth, which is the beginning of a new 26,556 years cycle in third density. Those who choose this version will do so out of fear. They are so stressed out and horrified by how their lives turned out, where they may not have had enough food on the table, if they even had a table, no job, no home. The solution seems like God sent. The old governments will most probably be either overthrown by a furious mob or militia, or they will resign, or the corruption will be revealed, sometimes purposely by the PTB behind the scenes, and the politicians will be sacrificed by their invisible masters for a bigger purpose. People see the corruption and find it disgusting. Being a politician in the near future will show to be the most dangerous job in the world. People may literally murder them in fury, run after them down the street and hang or shoot them. I want to emphasize here that this is not anything I support at all. I am all for peaceful solutions, and I know that violence feeds violence. Still, it's very plausible that this kind of violence will happen on one level of reality, in many possible worlds. When the corruption within governments is totally in the open, and this process has already started, many politicians have already been exposed, and there is no government anymore, or it's very reduced in numbers, the alien card could be played out. An alien race is landing and giving us the solution. They will tell us they come in peace and will give us the technology needed to build a new, sustainable society. This may be when the smart cities take on their real identity. This is just one version of what could happen. Another card could be played out first, but smart cities is definitely on the table and is already being started on. The word smart will be used frequently by the global elite from now on and way into the future when comes to technology. The price people who choose this route have to pay is that they will live in a totally controlled and surveilled society, a machine world which is going to be very scary. However, it will be introduced in such a way that people won't even realize what they are getting themselves into. In the long run they will become half machine, half human, and their bodies will no longer be good enough for souls to occupy. The vibration of this future society will be very low, with little chance to advance on a spiritual and biological level. What starts out as a blessing will turn out to be a world of horror, something taken from the most horrific science fiction novel. The PTB know that there will be people who won't implement their brainwash into their version of reality, but as long as we don't physically harm them, the PTB don't really care. They know they have the majority of mankind hooked to their agenda, and they will try to make it as difficult as possible for us, the minority, who choose another route. They will outlaw certain herbs and plants that we need for survival, and they will even outlaw certain kinds of gardening, which is also needed for us to be self-sufficient. We will be forced to buy contaminated food from their industry. And if we have refused to take their implants, we can't buy and sell? Don't be fooled. How many people do they need to hire to go after each and every person who is seeding an outlawed herb, plant, or vegetable? Is someone going to come and knock on your door, saying, "No, can't plant that, it's against the law. Come with us now"? Not going to happen, although they are most certainly going to create fear within the alternative movement that this will happen, and they may win some people over, who still haven't overcome their fear. No, my friends, the solution is to create the reality, or version of Earth, you want to live in and start living it, without any fear. This raises your vibration, many will follow, and in the future, we will create alternative communities on smaller scales at first, which will be self-sufficient, and the technology we will use is going to be based on the greatest good for the community and each person who lives in it. Things will be local for quite a while. We are all going to need to use our skills to contribute to the community, but the difference between communities in the future and many communities in the past is that we now have a greater knowledge of what is going on around us, and the frequency/vibration of the people with similar ideas are much higher in general than of those in the past. Eventually, when we have created the reality we want, there will be a metaphysical split of the Earth, where we will evolve into a less dense reality, which we call the fourth density. The machine world Earth will split off and continue another cycle in 3D. The first thing we all need to realize, and I say it again, is that we are run by forces who feed on fear. Fear nurtures those in power and it creates obedience. Nothing is going to change to the better for anybody, until they recognize that they have been manipulated and that this is just the beginning. The fork in the road is glaring at us, two big signs: follow us, fear us, and be slaves in hell. Or fear not and be free. Still, in spite of the red, flashing signs, a majority of the population will choose the road to slavery once again. What is there to control if there is no one who is afraid? How can you control someone who is absolutely fearless? The solution is so simple that it's silly. Fear not and you are free. Still, I'm writing hundreds upon hundreds of pages just to say these 6 words, knowing that if that would be all I said, hardly anybody would understand. It's too simple. It's sad, but true. If you're fearless, the PTB can threaten you with anything they want, and their threats just fall off like water on a goose. The PTB know this, and they know that their power depends solely on keeping people ignorant so they can fear what they don't understand and thus can be controlled. They are hanging on to a rope that can break any time, but still they are confident and arrogant. How come? Easy. If people only knew how easily we are manipulated by reading newspapers, watching TV, and listening to politicians reading scripts, even when we think we're not. It's a piece of cake to lead the sheep wherever they want us to go, whether the sheep are 70 in quantity or 7 billion. It's so incredibly easy, and we have been stupefied to fall for it for so long that they can do it to us in their sleep. They create our collective reality through media, over which they have total control, and I'm talking mostly mainstream media now. They want to change the way of thinking of a whole population overnight? Simple, to the brink of boredom. Just change the script on CNN and the whole world changes their reality. We need to realize this. Don't listen to anything they are saying and instead create your own local universe on your own local Earth, the way you want your life to be for you. Raise your vibration and help others do the same. I wish everybody could finally realize that everything that comes out of the mouths or the word processors of the politicians or the media is dung and only suits their agenda, which they want to pull us all into. It saddens me to see how so many people sit before their TV screens and watch the news, thinking they learn something. Even though I know everyone is on their private journey, it is still grieving me, because we could all so easily become free in a blink of an eye. But that's not the destiny of mankind at this time. My mission is to at least make as many people as possible aware of what we're sitting in, and it doesn't smell good, and that's all I can do. I am going to where freedom is, at any cost. Those who think alike, I will see you soon, that is a given. 5. The Law of One. The first time I got in contact with the universal law in this lifetime, on a conscious level, was when I read Hidden Hand, the RA material, and The Children of the Law of One, the Lost Teachings of Atlantis. I knew already before that we are all one, having written articles about it back in 2005, but these 3 teachings put everything in perspective and they pushed my awareness up 10 notches. The Law of One is, as the term indicates, a statement that everything is one and that everything is created by, and connected with, the Prime Creator. So how is this different from the Christian faith, for example? In Christianity we are also created by a one Creator, a Prime Creator, or God. There are lots of differences, actually, and Christians who are fundamental in nature know the difference. In Christianity, we were created by Jehovah, YHVH, Yahweh, in His image, but we are not connected to Him as being part of Him. In other words, we are not gods in the sense that we have a connection with Him that would make us potentially equal to Him. We are totally separated from God, because He made us out of clay, and not by reproduction. Also, in Christianity, God is a man in the sky, who can come down and visit, mingle, eat with us, and chat with some selected humans. Then He casually asks for some human or animal blood sacrifices to His honor, and then takes off into the skies again, like He did with Moses. Law of One in Christianity would mean the law of God, do as I say or succumb, fear me or go to hell. The real Law of One is as ancient as the universes of existence. It's the law of omnipresence in all life, and it is the supreme law over all laws in all dimensions and densities. We are all one. All beings, and everything in existence in any universe exists within and of the Prime Creator, which is all that island. When one is harmed, all are harmed, and when one is helped, everybody is healed. Hence, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all, I ask that only that which is the highest good of all concerned happen here and now and through all time and space. I give thanks that this is done. So be it. The above is the very powerful beginning of a short YouTube video dedicated to the Law of One. By understanding its dynamics, we can use it either for good or bad, equally. There is no personal God who is going to punish you if you do horrible things, there is no hell, and on the other side of the coin, there is no personal God who will reward you with heaven if you are good, either. There is karma, which will put things in balance and help you grow, but you yourself create your now and your future, and you create your own rewards and punishments. The video continues with a quotation. I can do no other than be reverent before everything that is called life. I can do no other than to have compassion for all that is called life. That is the beginning and foundation of all ethics. Albert Schweitzer, 1875–1965, theologian, organist, philosopher, physician, and medical missionary. The Law of One was strictly applied back in the early Atlantis and Lemurian days, before the kingdom was divided into 2 camps, those who practiced the Law of One and those who practiced the Law of Belial. The latter were the great manipulators, where have we heard that before, and pretended to be very ethical, compassionate and well-intended, but were nothing but. They finally took over Atlantis from the practitioners of the Law of One. However, there were survivors after the Great Flood swept over Atlantis and other continents of Earth. Some fled through portals to the inner Earth where they lived for thousands of years, and some of them live there still. Others eventually came back up to the surface again, and some of them are the Native American Indians. It's devastating to see how the Belians, the white people of Europe, once again invaded the land of the children of the Law of One, native Indians, and in their evil almost wiped out the whole Indian population in today's United States and Canada. By doing that, much wisdom and knowledge disappeared. But amongst those who survived, the legend lives on and the truth is told within the tribes still. Albeit, it's normally not told to everybody in the tribe, only to a few selected, who hopefully can carry the wisdom further to the next generation. Here is some proof that the native Indians know about the Law of One. All things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons of the earth. Man did not weave the web of life, he is only a strand in it. Whatever he does to the web, he does to himself. Chief Seattle, Nez Perce, 1854. The Law of One represents original religion, the unalterable, universal truths and laws as brought into being by the Prime Creator. The divine design of the Prime Creator and its appointed Creator gods is imbued within the created. The original, eternal intention of the Law of One is love-based, respect for free will, and perpetual life creation. Law of One belongs to everyone of every creed. He who experiences the unity of life sees his own self in all beings, and all beings in his own self. Buddha. Law of One perspective respectfully acknowledges the interconnection, interdependence and intrinsic value of all components and manifestations of life. Once a person has come to the insight that all is one and it becomes very real to the person, amazing things start happening. It is a 180 degrees life changer. Nothing can shake this insight, because it's such a basic truth. This person automatically realizes that unconditional love is the most basic thing in the universe, creation is based on love and light. You begin to feel compassion for everybody, even those who you previously thought didn't deserve it. You come to the insight that if you despise or exclude somebody from compassion and love, you exclude a part of yourself from the same emotions to the same degree. Unconditional love does not mean that you agree with what everybody is saying and doing. Sometimes it can be the opposite of that, you notice how somebody is walking astray in life. Then, having the wisdom that you have, you can see that this person is in a learning process of some sort, and is heading in a direction that is counter-survival. You know it's their path and they need to learn, but you also know you can give a few pieces of advice to guide them on the way. This advice can be contrary to this person's current beliefs and make him / her upset and even start yelling at you, but you know in your heart that in spite of that, you create a seed in that person, and this seed can grow ever so subconsciously in them, to be looked at sometime in the future. You may never receive gratitude from some of the people you help, but it doesn't bother you. It's the knowledge that you seeded something positive in that person that makes you happy. This is unconditional love. 5.1 Jesus and the Law of One. This brings me to the subject of Jesus Christ. If we read the New Testament we can see that Jesus definitely taught the people of his time the Law of One. He always said, "Love thy enemy," and even when he supposedly died on the cross, he asked God to forgive those who killed him. That's unconditional love. He also said that the kingdom of heaven lies within. How much clearer can he be? There are researchers today who deny that Jesus even existed. They refer back to Mithra, Osiris, and Horus, Krishna and others, and say that all these mythological beings were all born on winter solstice, and were crucified. Thus, Jesus is just a myth too, created by the PTB to have someone to worship. In fact, none of these entities ever existed. I don't know how they can still hang on to this concept, because it's so obviously wrong. First of all, we know that none of these beings who preceded Jesus were mythological, they have all existed, something I have proved in previous papers about the Anunnaki and their business here on Earth. The claim that all these beings had the same birthday is not correct either. Even educated Christians know Jesus wasn't born on winter solstice, and his predecessors were probably not either. Maxwell and others go back and compare other events in the lives of these beings and thus give power to these conclusions. Of course Jesus existed, although he wasn't whom the Bible describes him. Who would make up such a story as that of Jesus Christ if it wasn't true? The teachings in the NT are extraordinary, profound and enlightening. Would the global elite make this up and distribute it to us to enlighten us? No, the only conclusion would be that Jesus existed, was a man who incarnated on earth to teach the law of one to a world who was in great need of it. He was so successful that when the PTB of the time realized he had to be silenced, it was already too late. Too many people had already taken his teachings to heart. Instead, they probably planned to kill him, but he managed to escape to Europe. There is a lot of good books describing how this happened, got married, had children, and possibly lived his last days in Tibet, where he died of old age and was buried. It was the members of the Council of Nicaea, in 325 AD, who distorted and corrupted Jesus' true teachings. Jesus never intended to build a religion around himself, and had no wish to be worshipped. The council knew they couldn't just pretend he never existed. It was too late for that, but they could distort and take out the most powerful teachings from the Bible and then make the rest into a religion. So long as people worship somebody and give their power away to someone else instead of finding the power within themselves, the PTB are safe. Let the fools worship, they thought. In fact, it was an ingenious move on the part of the power elite, and this myth of Jesus has served us well, as one pope allegedly said a long time ago. 15. Jesus was not the first, and not the last, person who came to earth to teach the law of one and got either killed, harassed, or imprisoned for his/her beliefs, but that is just the way it goes as long as the planet is run by forces which are servants of darkness. All these teachers throughout the ages knew they probably would not be totally successful, but that is okay. They all planted a seed or two in humanity, and their assistance has helped us and guided us tremendously over time. Now, when we are approaching the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new, let's send some gratitude and positive energies to those who came before us. They will feel it. I know they don't expect any gratitude or compassion, but let's give it to them anyway. They were indeed successful, after all.